most agencies, as long as you have somewhat of a clue, they're going to want you in so your sales can turn into their sales. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to For Real Estate. I'm Sammy Lubeck.
And I'm Rebecca Pesci. Welcome to another episode, folks. Glad you're here for take 2.
We're back. Did you think we were just going to do one episode and bail on you?
No, that's like thinking I'm going to have one espresso martini and pay the bill.
Yeah. You know, if I'm sure many of you watched our introductory video, I would actually hope you would. But just to remind you guys why we have espresso martinis, why?
Do we need to remind them?
I don't know. We both love them.
We love this. This is how we first bonded. Shared love of cheesecake, don't judge, and espresso martinis.
Yeah, so here we are back at Chez Rebecca, but we are getting ready to take our podcast on the road to great local establishments in Chicago and Arizona that make a spectacular espresso martini.
Right, so if you've got a recommendation for us, hit us up. DM us, Gmail us.
Do you need me to remind you of the email?
I do. Remind me of the email, Sammy.
Here's the email. Not that we've been drinking at all, but our email is for realestatepodcast@gmail.com. That's FOR realestatepodcast@gmail.com.
Right. So if you've got a recommendation for us, a great espresso martini anywhere in the Chicagoland area or the greater Phoenix and Scottsdale area, let us know. Maybe we'll take our show on location there next.
Yeah, we're going to be traveling. Get ready.
Get ready.
All right. We holding these espresso martinis for the whole podcast?
I want one more sip.
All right. Enjoy us while we sip.
It is so good.
That's pretty good. But we're not here just to drink, especially for our listeners.
Let's talk real estate.
Let's
put this down.
Okay.
All right. So this week we're covering getting in the biz. So that could be you as a new broker. That could be you as a new buyer, a new seller, a new investor. All the ways in which you can get into this business and be successful. And we'll share some of our stories along the way. Without
a doubt. So we're going to be talking about not only for new buyers out there, new agents, and investors. We're going to cover it all, so we're getting into this real estate game on different levels. But before we do that, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about how we got into the game as real estate agents. So Rebecca, why don't you tell everybody like what you did maybe before real estate, how you got into it?
Sure. I think everyone has their own origin stories, and it's always fascinating when you talk to other brokers to ask them how they got into the business, because we all got there a little bit differently.
For sure.
Personally speaking, I had a previous life in corporate marketing. I was in marketing for Big Four accounting firms out of college. Was pretty dissatisfied with that. Getting my MBA at Northwestern here locally.
You're smart.
Yeah, I'm a smart cookie.
Wow.
I'm a smart cookie. And was really sort of disenchanted by working for somebody else and letting somebody else benefit from the work I was doing on myself, for myself. And, you know, it was sort of at that little bit of a quarter life crisis, I think they call it. And I remember I was living in the city at the time, and I remember being at a beautiful brunch out on the sidewalk. You know, it's fresh air. It's one of the first really nice days outside. And we're just having a lazy brunch, and we finish what we're eating, and we're walking through the neighborhood on the way home, and I see a for sale or an open house sign on the sidewalk, and I've always wanted to know what that looks like on the inside. Let's go inside. And that was when my now husband said to me, "Why don't you do this?" And I said, "You mean like real estate?" He said, "Yes." He said, "You are constantly dragging me to these open houses. This is clearly something you enjoy. Why don't you do this?" And it was sort of like this epiphanic moment, you know, like, gosh, I never really thought that I could do this as a career.
Right.
It's a tough job. It's a tough business.
It definitely is.
It's a commission-based business. So for those of you, you know, super type A personalities like I was, that's definitely an adjustment.
You were or you are now?
Softened, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right, maybe not as much as I'd like to think in my old age. I'm still pretty type A.
Okay.
I'll wear that like a badge of honor.
Okay.
But that is a difficult thing to overcome. I hadn't thought about it in that way, for that being a very big reason.
Okay.
But with my husband's support, I got into this business 17 years ago and have never looked back.
Awesome.
How about you?
You know, like you say, everyone's journey into this business is very unique. My professional career is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Oh. When I got out of college, I was actually a middle school math teacher for 5 years.
Wow.
Loved it. Loved actually teaching the kids and helping them learn and seeing that magic look in their eye, you know, when they finally like understood something.
Algebra. Angles.
Nothing better. Nothing better. Loved coaching basketball and everything, but I hated grading papers. I hated all the prep work. I hated the fact that I was grading papers till 9 o'clock at night. No, this isn't a podcast about teaching. So to all you teachers that are watching this,
thank you.
We love you.
Thank
you so much. But for me, don't miss it at all. So then after that, I got the opportunity to make a huge left turn and went into sports television. And I worked through my company. I was out in Los Angeles for a couple of years working with Fox Sports, worked on a bunch of sports shows like NFL on Fox on their Sunday. I would sit behind Howie Long and Terry Bradshaw and all those guys. It was a pretty cool guy job. Ended up coming back to Chicago, worked in the sports industry for over a decade, started doing real estate on the side.
Yeah.
And it was something that I'll never forget. Like I was watching the first season of, I think it was $1 Million Listing.
Oh.
This is where we
differ. I hate those shows,
okay.
But I digress.
I love it. I absolutely love it. But this was the very first season. So this was before like Josh Flagg, Josh Altman, Tracy Tudor, all of them were on it. It was just about these random Los Angeles real estate agents that were going to houses in Malibu and they were, you know, schmoozing their clients. They were showing them around, showing their expertise. And they were cashing some pretty nice commission checks.
That's really before all those big egos got involved.
Without a
right?
doubt.
That's when it was just about the real estate and the houses and the views and the bedrooms until it got, you know, Josh Flagg, Josh Altman, all those guys who decided to make it real slick and make it look easy and cash really big checks.
Well, in a future episode, we're going to talk about the differences between reality TV with real estate and reality. So stay tuned on that. But, you know, it's one of these things where could I see myself on a TV show doing that? Well, we're starting by doing this podcast and you never know where this may go.
Baby steps.
So all you talent executives out there, we're available. Feel free. But anyways, we digress. And I absolutely just was drawn to it. I figured I was good with schmoozing people.
True.
Tried to bring out the best of them, put them at ease, and help them find a house. And that got me to the point where I was doing it part-time for several years before it was time to give real estate my full effort. And once I was able to focus all my energies on it, that's when my career kind of took off.
That's when we first met.
Yeah. I mean, we ended up, we mentioned this in our introductory episode that we did start the same agency here in the north suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah.
And, you know, why don't we talk a little bit about like, as people look into, you know, finding an agency and everything, like, I think it's very important for people that are looking into the real estate industry. Like there are all these agencies, but how do you find, and how did we find, you know, how did we decide on the agency that we started with?
Well, I don't really have any crazy words of wisdom. The first brokerage I started at, where I first met you, the reason I started there was because when I was 5 or 6 years old and my parents were selling our first house in the suburbs, that brokerage was the one whose sign was in the yard.
Oh, wow.
When I was 5 or 6. I'll never forget this.
It made a huge impression.
Well, I was really little and I was supposed to be having some quiet time, right?
Okay.
And while my younger siblings were napping, and I remember peeking out the window in my bedroom, which faced the front of the house, and there was this for sale sign in the yard, and the logo that I still see to this day was that first brokerage that I joined where you and I met each other.
Okay.
So it wasn't that deep initially. There was something sort of...
Was the sign bedazzled?
No.
To catch your eye as a 5 or 6 year old?
No, it wasn't though. I do remember the broker's name.
Okay.
I still remember the broker's name.
You can mention it.
This
We're
was
not
going,
outing anybody.
No, this was going way, way back. And
That's
in
okay.
fact, years later, this was probably going on 8, 9, 10 years ago now.
Okay, when you were 12?
When I was 12,
Okay.
I found myself on the other side of a deal with her.
Okay.
And she was, a legend in the industry, but had advanced in age, right? But I remember sitting...
That happens as years go by.
Yes, but a little, probably, she was near retirement at that point.
Okay.
And we were sitting across the table from each other.
You can use the word
at the closing
dinosaur.
table. No, she wasn't. She was fantastic.
Okay.
She was so glam. But we're sitting across the table from each other, and I said, I have to tell you, one of the reasons I joined this brokerage was because I remember you and your name on the for sale sign in my front yard when I was a little kid. You sold my parents' first house.
Wow.
And she remembered the house.
Wow, that's
she didn't remember
crazy.
my parents. But, it had been 30 years. So
Okay.
35 years.
Do you think you would remember every single house that you have done a deal on?
I'd like to think that in 17 years, I remember every single property. I remember every single client.
Okay.
Even the ones I didn't like.
Okay.
Maybe more
You
so.
don't love all of
Maybe
your
I remember those more.
That's a hot take. She didn't like all of her clients.
I love every one of my clients.
Okay.
They become my friends.
Okay.
I do. I remember. Don't you remember every single one?
So I was okay. We are filming this right after New Year's. So one of the things that I do right around New Year's is send a video text to pretty much all of my current clients and past clients. So I've had a busy last week pretty much. And I was looking at all my previous deals. And probably there were only a handful of deals that I had no idea what the property was or who the person
Really?
was. Yes.
Why do you think that is? Like, why don't you think you remember
I've done
them?
a lot of deals.
No,
we've
both done a lot of deals,
Okay.
but I remember all
I'm
of
not
them.
trying to top
No,
you.
I'm just saying I've done a lot of deals and I remember all of them. You've done a lot of deals, but you don't remember all of them. Like, what made that difference?
There were a couple that my team members did that I obviously
Fair.
had no idea.
Fair.
But my name was on the deal.
Okay.
But at the same time, there were a few that, just over the years, I really had to wonder who it was.
I just want to make sure I don't have to worry about memory loss or something with you right now.
No,
that there's
okay.
there's not a precursor to something where you don't remember the clients.
I
that
remember
you had.
98% of my clients, I swear, but wow, this is not going to look good for me.
Oh God. No, it's just because they were so memorable. You've blocked them out because no one could ever compare to that. That's why.
Whatever.
All right. Moving on. Also getting into the biz here, we talk about buyers, sellers, investors, potential clients of ours, people who are potentially participating in a real estate transaction. I think the easiest place to start, I guess we could argue chicken or the egg, but the easiest place to start is with sellers, right? Without homes to sell, there wouldn't be any buyers. So when we first think about clients, seller clients getting into the game, getting into the biz, where do we start? What are recommendations? What if you're thinking about being a seller? What's your advice to them?
I think a lot of it is very similar between buyers and sellers. You got to surround yourself with qualified professionals that are going to help guide you, for sellers and buyers. Sellers, naturally, you're going around if you're in your particular neighborhood, you see signs that are up in the neighborhood. You see the agents that are making deals. Naturally, it's, you want to do your homework.
Yeah.
And just because an agent has a listing in your neighborhood, that doesn't mean they're going to be the right agent for you. Not only that, but you're going to be talking naturally with family members that had good experiences with other agents, but that doesn't mean they're the one for you. We see so many people that say, oh, I went with so-and-so because they're a family friend. Oh, I know somebody in the business. And then you look them up on the internet and they've done 3 deals in the last 4 years. Great, they're in the industry, but they're probably a part-time agent who doesn't have that much success naturally,
right,
and may not know what they're doing. So you definitely want to go with an experienced agent, whether you're selling or buying. But sellers, for sure, you want to know somebody that has that experience and that knowledge base in the area where your property is naturally.
Right. And that's not to say that your friends or your family don't have some really great suggestions. It's just that once you get those suggestions, like trust but verify, right? Someone gives you a name or you've got a couple of names, do a little bit, Google them, check them out, ask around a little bit, because maybe they do a ton of business and they're a really great agent 20 miles away from you, or they're a really great agent, but, maybe they don't have really great reviews. There's, a lot of brokers who get a lot of business and they don't get a lot of repeat business because they're not always so great. All I will say is if you're a seller or a buyer, this goes for both, but since we're talking about sellers, you're going to be spending a lot of time with this person.
Absolutely. A
lot of time. And I remember one time when I was, again, living in the city, working corporate marketing, I was taking the L into work. And at this point, Career Builder had just launched.
Okay.
And there was a billboard. I'll never forget. There was a billboard on Career Builder. It said, you spend more time at work than you do with your spouse. Be choosy.
Okay.
So I would say the same thing here. You're going to be spending a lot of time with this broker, and there's a lot of really great brokers, but everyone's fit is a little bit different. So interviewing them, I think, is huge. Get a list of people you vetted, you think could be great on paper, invite them into your home, have some conversations. You're going to be getting really close really fast with this person. And if it's a disconnect, they could be a great broker, but it might not be a great broker for you. And
I would say that the internet has reviews on these agents.
Yeah.
You can see them on, some people have a bunch of reviews on Google, on Zillow. Zillow is a great site for seeing the reviews from previous clients for those agents. And, not only is it about the stars that they get, but read those descriptions because you're going to get some insight. If you look, I know that if you look me up, people are going to say, hey, he kept things light. He tried to keep things as stressless as possible and he got the job done.
Right.
So I think it's very important to do your own interviewing, like Rebecca said, but also your own due diligence to see what random people that you don't know are going to have to say about a particular agent. Right.
If you look up reviews for me, I get a lot of honest, direct, intuitive, straightforward, right? And that doesn't always, I can admit that doesn't always work for everybody, right? Some people, and that's not to say that I can't handle clients who need different things,
sure,
but my vibe is pretty straightforward, right? I'm a straight shooter. If that's sort of your vibe, then that's a really good fit. And if you like, someone who's, going to keep things really light, that's a great fit for you, right? There's so many different, personalities. There's so many different kinds of brokers, just like there are different kinds of people. So I don't want to belabor the point anymore, but just do your research and interview them and see if that really makes a good fit for your needs.
And while we are portraying ourselves as great agents that everybody would want to use, we will say that there are a ton of great agents out there. At the same time, there are definitely those agents that aren't that great, that just portray themselves like they have a lot of success. Maybe they just see them on social media like they get the job done and they are constantly busy. But then you look their stats up on sites like Zillow, like Homes.com, and they don't do any business. So just make sure you do your proper due diligence.
Right. Get a whole picture of them. Ask around, ask people around, and, find a great fit. Right. And listen, this is a contract that you sign as a listing agreement. If it doesn't work out, this is not a totally huge deal if it turns out not to work out so well. I love being the second agent on a deal when things don't work out the first time.
You get to be the savior.
You do. You get to be a hero. I love that. It's really fun. But, you don't want anybody to have a bad experience. So just be choosy.
Without a doubt. Okay, so buyers out there, very similar thing. You're not signing that document for them to sell your house. You may be spending more time with them on the buy side than the sale side. If a phenomenal agent comes in as your listing agent and gets the job done quickly, you're not going to be spending too much time. Buyers, especially over the last couple of years in a more competitive market out there, naturally, you're spending a lot of time with your agent. So do the same thing. Do that due diligence. Make sure they have experience in your neighborhood that you're looking in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's the same holds true, making sure it's the right fit for you. You'll know pretty quickly if that's the case. You spend one afternoon with a broker planning to go out on different properties, and you'll see pretty quickly if it's the right fit. Don't be afraid to go a different direction, so to speak. If you find they're just not hearing you in the way that you're trying to convey. And I think that there's no shame in that. I would so much rather have a buyer, not that this has ever happened, of course, but I would so much rather a buyer.
So what happened?
Say after, never.
Okay.
Say after, an afternoon, be like, listen, this is really great, but we're not that serious right now, or we don't waste your time, or whatever it is. This is our livelihood, right? This is what we do for a living.
Absolutely.
And so we take time away from our families, from our friends, from our own relaxation time to be with you guys as clients. So if you're looking to get into this business as a seller or a buyer or an investor, this is pretty universal. Be respectful of the fact that this is our job. I would never come in and waste your time. Right. Again, I'm a straight shooter, so I'd tell you if I was ready to move on. But buyers, you have a lot of power in this situation too, and you'll know pretty quickly again if it's the right fit for you. So do your research too.
So going along with, being respectful of the agent's time, there is nothing wrong with going out with an agent to see a house or two on a particular day and kind of sizing them up that one day. And if you don't feel that connection, you don't feel that you're being taken care of, you don't sense their expertise, it is completely fine for you to say, you know what, thank you so much for your time, but we're going to go in a different direction.
Right.
The key that I would say based on my experience is just make sure that you're doing it, maybe once or no more than twice. Because if you go out and take a look at houses with an agent on several occasions and then kind of cut the cord with them, it really, it's not as respectful of their time naturally.
Right.
And I think that after that first or second meeting with an agent, you really gain a sense of, if they're going to be the right fit for you.
Right. And I would just remind you as buyers, sellers, I guess too, but particularly for buyers, it's just business, right? Yeah. This isn't personal. No. It becomes very personal. You're talking about a very personal transaction, your home, something, that everyone kind of sees as sort of their refuge in this world. But this is a transaction, right? And it's a huge transaction. So you really need to trust somebody who is going to help you strategize, who's going to help you negotiate, who's going to help you get into the right house for the right price and the right circumstances that works for you. And in fact, sometimes I offer to buyers who maybe I don't know quite so well. Maybe they're a referral. Maybe it's somebody that I met at an open house that I've picked up. But I will usually offer to them that if you want to go out with me, we go take a look at some properties. Let's use that as sort of this trial run for the both of us.
Sure.
It gives us both the out. And that's not to say that I don't want to work with you. That's not to say that I don't think you're going to not love me. But it just takes a little bit of that pressure off a little bit. And that's okay. You can decide after that first meeting if that's like, hey, how's this going? We feel it's a good fit. Let's continue to work together.
Yeah. And again, you're spending all this time with them. You want to work with people who are knowledgeable, but more than anything, that you just build that trust with, that you want to spend that time with and hopefully get the job done and either sell your house or get you a new property. It's not rocket science. No,
and communication is key. Overarching with everyone, buyers, sellers, brokers, doesn't matter. Relationships and communication is huge in this business. Okay. So keep all of that in mind. This would probably be a good time, Sammy, to remind everybody how they can continue to support us and our podcasts. You want to let them know?
If you are listening to this on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you follow. Make sure you give us that positive rating because naturally you love listening to this.
Love listening to us.
Love listening to this. Share this podcast with your friends. And if you're watching us on YouTube and seeing our smiling faces here, make sure you give it that thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the podcast.
Right, because we're having a great time here. I don't know about you guys, we're having a good time listening. We're having a really good time making these podcasts. We'd really love to continue to do more of them. So we need your support. Thank you so much.
Please help us. Please.
Okay, we're not begging. We're just asking.
I'm begging.
Okay, Sammy's begging. I'm asking very nicely. Please support us.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about investors that are trying to get into the real estate game.
Yes. I typically find, as I'm sure you do too, that our investor clients fall into one of two buckets. They're either those buy and hold clients who want to buy a property, maybe on a downswing of the market where rents are still really competitive. They have to do maybe a little bit of work. Maybe it's a little bit of a distressed property. But the idea is to buy it, hold it, and rent it out so they have a passive income source.
Exactly.
And then the other bucket of my investor clients typically fall as flippers, those who want to buy a usually significantly distressed property.
A piece of crap, usually.
Well, okay, even garbage sells, okay, for the right price. They want to come in, they want to buy it, usually in cash, do some work to it, and then sell it at a profit. So the key to being an investor at the very minimum is an equation, right? Do the numbers make sense? That is a yes or a no. It is not an essay question. If the answer is no, you move on. That's it. I don't care how much you like the location and the neighborhood and it doesn't matter. If the numbers don't work, you move on. If they do work, then you make an offer and you decide which bucket you'd like to fall into.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it naturally, it is that passive income versus hopefully a quick adrenaline boost to your bank account. You know, I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And just like buyers and sellers, you need to surround yourself with a great team. You have to have a real estate agent that you really trust. You need your finances in check. You need a good, accounting team or whoever's going to be running your numbers so that you can tell whether or not certain investments are going to be profitable. Obviously, your realtor is going to help, providing comps and everything.
Right.
But you're going to be the one that's going to be doing the work a lot of time. You need those great contractors as well with you. So you have to surround yourself with people that are not only going to do the work to help, turn a distressed property into a gem, but you're also going to have to see, more importantly than anything, if it's the right financial investment for you.
Right. Finances is a very big piece of being an investor client. The second most important piece of that is timing, right? How long do your contractors need to do any kind of updates, particularly on a flip? Are they available? What do their subs look like? What kind of rental market is going on? Is it the middle of winter where that's a downturn in your rentals? Or is that sort of peak rental season? Again, you lean on your real estate agent to help you with some of those, but there are not only the hard costs of buying the property and what the sale price or the rental price could be, but you're looking at soft costs too, right? You've got interest, you've got carrying, you've got taxes, you've got a lot of numbers to consider and a lot of factors to consider. So the team is a really great place to start, but your real estate agent is key in this kind of purchase or sell. So for my investor clients out there, we do a lot of work together, a lot of running numbers, a lot of conversations. So again, if you are an investor client out there and you want to get into that part of the business, make sure you've got a really great team behind you, and that starts with one of us.
Without a doubt, we're constantly running comps for our investors. Mm-hmm. It goes without saying. Two major issues that investors have getting into the business, major challenges. One is underestimating your costs, and Rebecca alluded to this.
Yeah, huge.
A lot of times when people are doing any projects in their home, usually costs 20% more than it does, and usually takes 20% longer. So if you're missing out, if you're looking for that rental income, and you go a couple extra months without that rental income coming in on a property, that's a huge obstacle to you getting that passive income right away. And the other issue is overestimating what a new property is going to sell for. Because a lot of times, let's say an investor comes in and they buy a $250,000 distressed property and they think it's going to sell for $650 once they flip it. Well, that property might not be able to sell for $650. It might sell for only like $550 or $575. That's a huge gap there. And when those situations arise, it's not the wisest investment in the world and not worth a certain investor's time. So please make sure that you not only surround yourself with the team, but people that are going to know what they're doing, because those mistakes lead to missed out opportunities. You're not going to have that liquid capital for other investments if it's tied up in a project that's not going to make you money.
Right. Those numbers can make the difference between it being a good investment and a bad investment. And the other piece I would add to that is when you rely on us as real estate brokers and we're providing you with that post-renovation value or that market value as a rental, keep in mind that that's a snapshot in time, right? If your project goes 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year out, then you're having a really different conversation again. And we can only provide you with the information that happens at any given point in time. We don't have a crystal ball. I can tell you what something is worth today. It might change next week, next month, next year.
Could be a totally different market.
Totally different market. So that is a constant conversation you're having with your brokers. But all I mean to say by saying that is if you are really lean on your margins on anything and your timeline is really risky, even if the numbers seem to work and the timeline seems to work, if you don't have that 20% cushion in there, don't do it. But again, relying on your team with trusted real estate brokers to begin with is especially key and essential in being an investor client.
So whether you're just a first-time buyer or an investor, you got to look at that liquid capital especially. And if it's all tied up in one project, you got to be very careful because you're going to want to make, a positive return on your investment. And a lot of times, if you don't do that due diligence, it's not going to happen.
Right. I think we've sort of belabored our investor point here.
You get it?
Timing, money, team. That's it. The trifecta. I think one of the things that we could go back and revisit a little bit is our talk about what it means to get into this business as an agent. And we touched on that at the beginning. Some really great sort of origin stories of our own. But what if you're one of those new brokers getting into the market? You've decided this is what you're going to do. You've picked a great fit for a brokerage. You've got your desk. You've got your business cards. You're ready to go. Now what?
Well, coming out of COVID, it seemed like there were so many new agents who thought it was super easy to get into the business.
Yeah.
Because things were just, flying off the MLS, deals were being made left and right. That's not always the case. So it's so important for people that are thinking about getting into the industry, naturally, to find a great agency to partner with and also go for and at least try to pass your state real estate exam. But as far as finding that right agency, what advice would you give to people that are looking for, that first agency that they start with?
I think it's a great question. I think that there are a lot of, again, like brokers, a lot of really great agencies out there. And this comes down to setting up your appointments with the managing brokers, having those initial interviews. I would suggest having a handful of them that you'd like to consider, whether that's based on, perceived value in your neighborhood. When you drive around, if that's the market you want to work, is your neighborhood or your town, when you drive around, what are the brokerages that you see the most signs of in the yards? That's a good place to start. And I think you set up those interviews with those managing brokers and get a sense for who they are, what their vibe is, what they stand for, sort of their value statements, and talk to some of the other brokers in the office while you're there and get a sense for who they are and if you think that's a good fit for you.
When I bought my place, I actually used the cousin of one of my best friends.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So when I was thinking about getting into the industry, I went to talk to her. So if you have people that that are in the industry that seem like they know what they're doing, that's a good place to start. Set up those talks, go for coffee, grab a drink with them, discuss the industry, and then they'll naturally most likely try to get you to at least have a conversation with their managing broker so they can tell you all about their agency.
Right. And remember, us as brokers, we're independent contractors, right? So it is not a ton of skin off of these managing brokers or these firms to hire you, right? There's maybe some training that starts, some business cards, et cetera, that they start off with, but there's not a whole lot of investment, a monetary investment in you as a broker, right? What they're looking for is your potential in sales, how much money you're going to be able to make them as a company. So, we don't get benefits, we don't get retirement, we don't get long-term disability, we don't get anything like that as an independent contractor. Remember that. It is unlike other businesses where they are trying to sell you on their benefits. And there's a lot of training dollars that goes into training you as one of their new employees. A real estate brokerage is not typically, that I've found, not typically like that. So you are interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And again,
I think
choosy.
It's even more important that you are interviewing them.
Yeah.
Because most agencies, as long as you have somewhat of a clue, they're going to want you in so your sales can turn into their sales and everybody can portray themselves as successful agents and brokerages. But when you're looking at these agencies and meeting with them, it depends what's important to you. Does an agency excel with their training, with their advertising, with the split that they're potentially providing you as far as your commission? There are several different factors, but when it comes down to it, I think the most important thing is just your comfort level and where you could see yourself, performing.
Right. And I think typically as new agents, having that support of your managing broker and having training support, a brokerage that's going to develop you as a brokerage and help you as a broker and help you build your skill set, your tool set so that you can be a successful agent out in the world, I think is incredibly important as a new agent. Us experienced agents look for different things when you see brokers who switch brokerages or switch agencies. They're typically looking for different things. But as a new agent, I would highly suggest you ask the questions and look for one that's going to develop you and provide support for you as a new broker.
I have to share this because you just made me think of something.
Go for it.
Whenever an agent is on social media and they say, "Oh, I got big news. I went to, XYZ agency," and everybody replies to them, "Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations." I immediately think oh, so you couldn't make it at your last agency? And
that's what you think?
Yes.
No,
it's like, congratulations. You're not necessarily going to be making more money or more deals. You just went to another agency.
I always think it's because they're going to be making a better split and usually I think this is the case, though I'm not outing anybody. Usually I think it's because there's been a disagreement of some kind or an incident where somebody didn't see eye to eye and the aggrieved party decides to land somewhere else to see if there are greener pastures in another brokerage. But
I get it. Like most industries, if somebody's like a manager and then, "Hey everybody, I just took a new position as a director." I get the promotion thing and the reason to be like, "Oh my God, congratulations." But every time I see, "Oh, I just went to another brokerage," like, yay, you're going to make more deals. Good luck.
Well, it's the same thing, different brokerage, different logo, different colors. This is about a vibe and a feeling as a brokerage. I got to tell you that as clients, the clients don't care where you are. Hear this if you hear nothing else. The clients have no clue the differences among these brokerages, and they don't care. If you are with a reputable and recognizable brokerage in the industry, that is all your buyers and sellers and investor clients care about. They don't care for the latest technology or number one blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter to them. "Oh, is that a company I've heard of? Great. You must be reputable at what you're doing. I can sign on with you." But the nitty gritty between the brokerages is really only something us as brokers either know about or care about.
Totally agree. If they're from a mom and pop agency, who knows? But if you're with a reputable agency, you're naturally going to get that respect, and that comes into play. But it's all about meeting that agent, trusting them, making sure they're the right fit to work with you.
All right. So now you've picked your agency. You've gone through all of that. You've had your interviews. You're like, "This is the one for me." I'm signing on here. I've got my desk space. I've got my business cards. I am ready. I am a broker. Hear me roar. Now what? What do you do now?
There are so many things that a new agent can do to get going in this industry that aren't going to cost any money.
Right.
If you look online and just look up prospecting, you know what? I got a sheet.
He's got a sheet. Folks.
I got a sheet.
He's got a sheet. Look out.
I did research. Okay. There are, wow, somebody put this together. 107 things that you can do. And I'm sure there are more.
Right.
And I'm sure you're not going to do all of these, because if you're doing all of these things, you're not selling any homes.
No, but if it's on the internet, it must be real.
The World Wide Web is fascinating.
Right. What do you got on there?
Okay. So I think the easiest thing to do when you're getting into this business is talk to the other agents who need coverage at open houses.
Agreed.
And I think that a lot of these experienced agents that are going to want to have open houses at their new properties, or maybe their stale properties that they've been trying to sell a long time, they want people and they want eyeballs. So they're going to have open houses that they may not want to,
or they're not able to. Maybe they've got 3 open houses on the same weekend and they need some coverage, or they're out of town, or they're not feeling well. Those are really great opportunities.
Yeah. So they're going to ask, whoever wants the opportunity to host the open house at their listing. And if you're going to be doing that, make sure that you learn as much as you possibly can about these properties, because you're going to have people walking all around a house and they're going to be asking you questions. And you know what? You have the opportunity to get clients at these open houses. And if you impress them, you're going to build that trust with them and maybe get some new clients. At the same time, if you don't know answers to what they ask, like, hey, what are the taxes on this property? What are the dimensions in this place? When was the roof done? If you don't, good luck getting them as clients. Good luck getting any new clients, because they're going to view you as somebody that just doesn't have the knowledge and doesn't have that attention to detail to impress them along the way.
Agreed. And when we say this is your opportunity to get new clients, what does that really mean? What that means is, in an open house, you're going to have, we call them the looky-loos, the nosy neighbors, the people who are coming in to look at the property who aren't otherwise represented by a broker. This is important, especially in a very hyper-local market like we're in, where we don't want to step on anyone else's toes on their clients. So if somebody walks into this open house and they're just new getting into the game, they haven't really looked at anything, and they haven't hired a real estate agent to represent them as a buyer, this is your opportunity to impress upon them your expertise and your really winning personality, and see if you can sign them on as your client. So when we say this is your opportunity to get clients, what we mean is this is your opportunity to pick up unrepresented buyers who happen to walk in to this open house. It is both selling the property that you are hosting, number one, but number two, and the real reason why real estate brokers host open houses, I'm sorry, this is the real reason.
Why is that?
Because sellers like to think that that's what sells a house, and it doesn't. 99% of the time.
Private showings.
That's right. Showings sell listings, but open houses, the reason brokers host those in the first place is to get unrepresented buyers and turn them into your clients. And that is probably the greatest use of your time as a new broker.
Yeah, when you have a bunch of people walking around an open house, it makes the house, much more of a popular commodity, but it also makes whoever's hosting that event seem like they know what they're doing, even if it's not their listing. You can be walking around this open house with swagger, answering questions, making it look like, hey, this is a property, I'm going to sell it today. Why wouldn't they want to work with you if you show that knowledge, that build that trust with them, and once again, just impress them to the point where you know that you can get the job done for them.
And I would say too, that if you are a newer broker, you're working a bunch of open houses, and you just haven't yet found your groove, haven't yet picked up that unrepresented buyer, the lessons you are learning about the market, about the neighborhood, about your comfort level, about talking the talk are just equally as important. So if you're that new broker working with us, you haven't picked up a buyer yet, don't get down on yourself. It's all part of the process, and you are gaining market knowledge and industry knowledge just by virtue of having to educate yourself on the home and the neighborhood and the schools, just by virtue of hosting the open house. So either way, hosting an open house is a huge win. And my book, probably the first place I would start as a new broker.
And here's just, once again, open up, the curtain and everything. One thing to do that I have used in the past, after an open house, make sure they sign in with a phone number, with an email. So not only can you add them to your CRM, but you can also then contact them. And what I have done in the past, immediately following an open house, send these people a video text saying, thanks so much for coming to the open house at 123 Main Street. Really great to meet you. More than happy to, show you some properties around the area, give you an idea, and really just build that trust. And if they reach out to you, you got them. If they don't, you wasted a couple minutes of your time sending them a video text.
Right. And I think that sometimes those follow-ups, whether that's text message or video message
or a call,
whatever it is, that's not going to yield you instant results. They're not going to call you right back and be like, yep, let's start working together. That may be a slow play, right? You might have to follow up them a couple of times. Maybe you send them a property that you think they would like that just came on the market based on your conversation with them. Really try to work that relationship. It's a live wire, right? And they'll tell you if they want you to stop reaching out. I'm not saying stalk them, but I'm saying
you would never stalk them.
Never. But give them a couple opportunities where you can reach out, maybe the next day, next week, next month, keep that relationship alive. And you'd be surprised how many months down the line you might actually hear back from somebody that you met at an open house a million years ago, just because you've massaged that relationship very passively, very genuinely and casually over time.
Last year, I did a deal with a client that I met at an open house 4 years ago.
Oh,
it took
insane.
them 4 years. I love them. I remember who they are. I do remember who remember who they are.
Of course you did.
But it was magic when we were joking about how long ago we actually met. And I stayed in touch and kept that follow-up. And finally, when they were truly ready and in a great financial position to buy a house, it happened. So that's really important advice that you're getting from us here is about that long play. Like Rebecca said, you're not going to get that instant gratification with a deal that often. Once in a while, it happens, and it's the greatest thing in the world. But the majority of our deals, they happen over the long play.
Right.
For
so
sure.
Be patient and just work the system. We throw in a lot of really great information at all of you, buyers, sellers, investors.
A lot.
New agents even. And I know it's a lot to digest. So feel free to listen to this a number of times.
You're all ready to get into the game now.
You are, because we just kept it real.
As we always do.
Real. We keeping it real in real estate. So that's also a good reminder to like, share, review.
Follow, subscribe, thumbs up.
Right. All the things. Do all the things to support us, because we're having a really great time here. And we want to keep bringing you really great content on location. So please support us in our podcast journey.
We really appreciate all the support, all the reviews, all the positive ratings. Please keep supporting us. We really appreciate it. But get ready, because we're going to be taking the show on the road.
That's right.
We're going to be on location trying espresso martinis at those great local establishments in Chicagoland and in Arizona. And if you own one, work at one, or know of one that you think we should take our show to, hit us up for realestatepodcast@gmail.com. That's FOR realestatepodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
See ya. Jesus.
We throw a really, like a 5-year-old, you and your appetite, your palate, and your...
I'm thirsty.
Oh.